Hello, welcome back to 1992. It's time for our Premier League preview show with myself, Dan Bardell, and football journalist, one of the best in the business, Jonathan Wilson. Today, we're going to look at West Ham v Spurs, Everton v Villa, Manchester City against Manchester United in the Manchester Derby, and of course, predict all the other games so we can go through our prediction league, where in case you missed last week's roundup, Jonathan is now top with 20 points. I'm second with 16 points after a terrible week last time out. The international break is over. We're hitting the ground running in game week 4. Jonathan, let's start with Nuno. Not a shock in the end. Bit sad how it's all unravelled given the job that he's done. I want to ask you about Postecoglou coming in because it just feels like a nonsense appointment to me, I've got to be honest.
I mean, it's very hard to see how he fits with that squad.
Exactly.
There was a really good thing on Sky that they did that you might have seen on social media, where they basically just, they've got every club in the Premier League last season ranked from 1 to 20th in various metrics. And so they mapped it out, all the things where Tottenham were one of the highest, 2 or 3, and all the things where Forest were 18th, 19th, 20th. That's not a qualitative thing. It's just a stylistic thing. So things like, how many times had a chain of passes more than 10 passes long, where they were winning the ball back. So, all pass completion, things like that. So, the stats, sometimes stats show you something that you didn't expect. Here, the stats just confirm what we know, which is Spurs played on the front foot. They played in the opposition half. They like to press really high. Their running distance was huge. It's a very exhausting style of play. Forest, exact opposite. Sit deep. Let the opposition have the ball in front of them, try and win it back, in their defensive third, play on the break. Last season, using the pace of Alanga, now obviously Dan Doy's come in, Callum Hudson-Odoi on the other side, going long to Chris Wood, who's really good at that sort of traditional number 9 role. Morgan Gibbs-White sort of knitting everything together. And it worked really well for them last season. But suddenly, they're going to go from that to this, just a style that could not be more different, the absolute polar opposite. So I was sort of thinking, is this me being sort of, seeing too much? We have seen examples before where a manager comes in, takes over a style that's sort of different to his own, and somehow the tension between the two is beneficial, or somehow they can build on what was there before. So you look at Arsene Wenger taking over, I know Bruce Rioch was there in between, but taking over George Graham's back four. Those foundations really helped Wenger's Arsenal in the early days. Or you look even at Ranieri at Leicester, the structure that Nigel Pearson had left really helped him. You can even argue to an extent it's like different way it worked, but Arne Slot last season benefited from what Jurgen Klopp had left. So I'm thinking, could there be something happens there that Postecoglou can build on the Nuno foundations? And then I watched Nikola Milenkovic playing against England. Thought, that man cannot turn. He cannot ask him to play a high line because any ball in behind him will destroy him. He's great when he can sit 5 yards outside his own box and head the ball away and wrestle with his forward and make tackles. You can't ask him to run. And I think Mario's very similar. So I have no idea how that's going to work. We hear a lot these days about football being content. And I think actually the Premier League this season, in quite a positive way, the content has been incredible. If you were scripting this as the new season of a drama, you've seen so many good storylines already. This is like they've taken the Manchester United storyline of a coach who doesn't fit his squad, and they've gone, right, this time we're really going to play it for laughs. We're going to play it with these massive characters, and we're going to make this just absurd. And Forest sort of feel like the joke storyline in a soap now. I mean, maybe it works. Maybe Postecoglou, maybe that last 6 months at Spurs, 4 months at Spurs, when he did change approach, maybe he's completely changed. Maybe that's how he's going to play. But unless he does that, this is going to be chaotic and disastrous. And to be honest, I can't wait to see it. I can't work out what's going to happen. It's a great sort of unknown, a great unpredictable. And it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't get Postecoglou, how he was so wed to a system and a way of playing in the league and kept saying, this is who we are, and all the sound bites that came out every week. And then in the Europa League, actually, we're going to do something completely different here, which he did, and it worked, and he won the trophy, and that's brilliant. But I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't get me cancelled. I kind of feel like if he wasn't Greek, and he hadn't just won the Europa League, he probably doesn't get this job. The owner just seems to be a massive fan of him without taking in the bigger picture for me.
Yeah, I mean, he is Australian. He's not Greek.
He's got Greek heritage. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's got Greek heritage.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there is a link there. I think they met in July, didn't they? I think there was a Greek Super League event where Postecoglou got given an award by the Greek FA or Greek League for winning the Europa League, and I think Marinakis met him there. So no, there is a link there. It can't just be that, can it? I mean, maybe it is.
It feels. I think if he didn't have that Greek heritage, I genuinely don't think he gets that job. That's my opinion. I don't know that for fact, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I'd take an extra step and say, if it wasn't some reason why Marinakis felt an affinity with him, he wouldn't get it. It happens, I assume, I don't know, but they had this meeting in the summer. Presumably they got on really well, and Marinakis was impressed by him. Their shared heritage may be part of that, it may not. But the point is, I can't see how you can make any claim that this is a decision based on. You look at Brentford or Bournemouth or Brighton, or look at Swansea when they were good and everything was holistic, everything at the club worked together. This is the opposite of that. This is just an owner acting on a whim. I really have no idea how this can work.
No. Let's do the prediction for the Arsenal Forest game on Saturday. I assume you haven't predicted Forest to win.
I've got 8-0 Forest. Yeah. I haven't. That's not my prediction.
No, I've locked it in, wrote it down. What have you gone with?
I've gone with 2-0 Arsenal.
It's exactly the same as what I've done. Who have you gone for as first goal scorer?
Jakobs.
Yep, that's exactly the same as what I've done. What a great start to the show there, and a great start to the predictions. And let's talk about something else that's absolutely ridiculous. Let's talk about England.
The one thing I would say is to why I'm not predicting Arsenal to win that 4 or 5-0. I mean, bearing in mind, Forest are a team who've just been hammered by West Ham.
Oh, no.
But I still think Arsenal will play quite cautiously. They look to play on set plays. And actually, Forest are quite good at defending set plays because they've got a load of big lads. So I think Arsenal will dominate the game, but they might struggle to break them down. That's why I'm saying only 2-0.
Yeah, they'll still be in the mould of the way Nuno plays the game. It's difficult to get your messages across that quickly and change your playing style. Maybe you alluded to this. Maybe that will help that, because there's no pre-season, he isn't going to be able to implement his style of football just bang straight away. It's because it's so different. Maybe that helps Forest in terms of, and maybe he'll have to just kind of gradually do it, which will mean that he'll start in a similar way to Nuno, in a similar way to how he was in the Europa League with Spurs. Maybe that will help them. I've managed to convince myself in 1 minute that it's a better idea than we thought it was.
I mean, that might happen, but what we're saying, for this to work, we're asking a coach who is, what is he, late 50s? Mid to late 50s?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, we're playing against the age.
We're not very good at ages, are we?
To completely change. Okay, he did change in last season, but somebody who, for the first 20-odd years of his coaching career, has done one thing. He's shown for 4 months he's doing something else. And we're the belief this might, or hope this might work for Forest fans, is some kind of faith based on the last 4 months that was something really concrete, and this massive conversion and how he's going to do things. But it's very little evidence suggests that works. Being a very rich club and beating some Norwegian teams, and who else did they beat? Some Polish teams.
Frankfurt. That was
really Frankfurt. Frankfurt still, their budget compared to Spurs is nothing.
Yeah, true.
And then they beat the worst Manchester United team in nearly 100 years.
Yeah, that is one way. That's one way of looking at it.
Well done.
Yeah. I mean, the exciting thing for Spurs is that he does last past this season. He does always win things in his second season. So at least next season, there'll probably be a trophy for Spurs.
That is true.
If he can survive Marinakis.
For Forest, you mean?
What did I say?
For Spurs.
Oh dear, I meant Forest. Everyone knew what I meant anyway.
That trophy may well be the championship. That's the problem.
Oh yeah. Nah, they won't go. They won't be in any danger, Forest. They can't be, surely. They did lose 3-0 to West Ham last time out, which is a pitiful result.
I would like to point out on with predictions.
Yeah,
I did predict Nuno to be the first manager sacked this season.
Did you?
Well, I said Potter or Nuno.
That's not predicting Nuno, is it? That's Potter or Nuno. You've got one way. I called this on TalkSport, and no one will have heard it. I called it before a ball was even kicked that he wouldn't last the season, before all that stuff had come out about him and Edo. I just knew that wasn't going to work. this season. They it feels like Forest want a bit of the self-destruct, although they do love the owner, and in fairness, look at how they have progressed under his stewardship. You can't really argue with the beast that Forest are now compared to what they were 3-4 years ago, in fairness. Let's talk about some more ridiculous stuff. Let's just talk about England quickly before we get into the Premier League preview. Of course, after all the noise after the Andorra win, of which there was quite a lot, in fairness, I don't think everyone's expectations were very high going into Serbia away. But my word, that was a good performance from Tuchel's England.
I mean, the best England performance, well, certainly since the win in Greece last autumn. Best performance under Tuchel by a million miles. I'd slightly caveat by saying Serbia were inexplicably terrible, and to an extent, England made them terrible. But still, that was a much worse Serbia performance than I was anticipating.
Same.
And I do wonder if it's something as simple as, for some reason, Dragan Stojkovic. Last time England played in Belgrade was 1987. I'm pretty sure Stojkovic was playing for Yugoslavia that day. And England won 4-1, and they absolutely bullied Yugoslavia, physically absolutely outmatched them with 4-0 up inside 25 minutes. 2 of the goals from corners, one of them just a big, meaty punt from Peter Shilton that Peter Beardsley got on the end of. I do wonder whether Stojkovic, somewhere in his mind, thought, "Oh, it's England. Maybe they're going to physically, rattle us. We better sit in a low block." Oh, actually, look at England against Andorra. They really struggle against a low block. We'll play in a low block, and maybe I think, talking to Serbians, there was a particularly defensive lineup they weren't expecting. I think Serbia maybe not necessarily playing to their strengths, so they tried to play in a low block, but. And this is going to sound absurd because they're obviously better than Andorra, a lot better than Andorra, but they're not as good at playing in a low block. They're not as used to it as Andorra. And therefore, once England had sort of started to pick holes in it, they couldn't deal with it. But the way that they just couldn't deal with Morgan Rogers, I found that bizarre. Like, that's not an unusual thing, a man just sort of dropping off the front line into that pocket. That's the kind of thing defenders deal with all the time. And
he's been trying to do it for the first 3 games of the season, and it's not worked very well.
I looked at the lineup, the England lineup. And you run your eye down the teams, you sort of think, it feels a little bit low powered. It feels like a Roy Hodgson selection. But then, the way they played was magnificent. I think Elliot Anderson, he will have to play much, much better sides, but very encouraging signs that he could be the player, and I'll be looking forward to play alongside Declan Rice. And I think now, Reece James maybe has nailed on that right back slot if he's fit, which is obviously the issue with him. And there's suddenly a wealth of options to play in the line of 3 behind Harry Kane.
Yeah, there's loads of people who didn't play in that England game as well. Trent, John Stones, Bellingham, Palmer, just off the top of my head. That was Saka. Yeah, there's a lot of players not available there. So to win that comfortably is a good side. I felt quite low about England after the Andorra game. I just thought there's no way we're gonna win the World Cup, and we still might not. But that was definitely an encouraging performance on Tuesday.
Well, at least I'm sure we're going to be at the World Cup now, which I have to say, going into that game, I was thinking nobody in England's talking about this as jeopardy. But if England lose this, they win 5-0. It sounds absurd to say England loses, but Serbia hadn't let in a goal. England had looked terrible. Serbia had pushed England pretty close in the Euros last summer. Serbia could have won that 1-0, 2-0. I mean, not the way they played, but that was a possibility. And if that had happened, the level of pressure on England's games in Albania and then at home to Serbia would have been enormous. And then England maybe will be facing a playoff, and who knows what happens then.
Imagine not qualifying for a 48-team World Cup. That would be a new low, wouldn't it?
It would be, but I mean, Italy might be about to experience
that. What goes on there? They just can't do Italy over a joke. Right, we've stitched ourselves up here because we always struggle going over the clock, and we've spoke for too long about other things. Although you could technically, that's related to the Premier League and what's going on. Let's talk West Ham v Spurs, and it is the Kudus derby, his first return to West Ham. Now, what on earth was that last West Ham result? Was that the turning of a corner? Was it a complete fluke? A great result away at Nottingham Forest. At home to Spurs now. Are they going to build on it, Jonathan?
I don't know. I feel we're always caveating things at the minute of saying, the opposition weren't very good.
Yeah, and it's too early. We don't know yet. Let's have a bigger sample size.
Did Sunderland beat West Ham because Sunderland were good or because West Ham were bad? Did West Ham beat Forest because West Ham were good or because Forest were bad? Probably all. It's probably a bit of all of those things. But I mean, clearly West Ham benefited from playing Forest at their most chaotic for quite a long time. But, if that gives them a surge of confidence and self-belief, then it doesn't really matter. They've got 3 points. They've got to win. They suddenly looked like a proper football team again. It might help. And their record against Spurs is excellent. They've only lost 1 of the last 8 against Spurs. Spurs do not like going to West Ham, whether that's Upton Park or the London Stadium. So I think this is it's a real test for Thomas Frank coming off the back of his first disappointing performance.
Yeah, and what did you make of that Spurs performance at Bournemouth? Because Bournemouth could have scored 5 or 6 that day. They played really, really well. I think that's kind of a game where you do have to look at it and think the opponent was very, very good there. Also, obviously, West Ham are coming off the back of a big win, maybe a touch of momentum, whereas Spurs have kind of stalled for the first time under Thomas Frank. So I don't get this fixture. When I was coming to predict it, I wasn't really sure what to do based on all those things.
I think I feel like I talk a lot about this these days, but there is a pecking order. And I think one of the key things in football is working out where you are in the pecking order. And I think a problem with teams like Tottenham, maybe Everton, maybe even Villa to an extent is they think they're better than they are. And that when they come up against a Brentford, a Brighton, a Bournemouth, even though you on one level they're really good, on another level you think, it's only Bournemouth. It's the first game Spurs have had under Frank where they weren't playing either a team who, PSG or City, where you think, well, they're probably better than us. Anything is a bit of a bonus. Or Burnley, well, look, we've got to beat them. Bournemouth is somewhere in the middle. As it turned out, as you say, Bournemouth played really, really well. Bournemouth completely outplayed them last season at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, only drew 2-2. Spurs scored, was it 2-0 to Bournemouth and Spurs came back? But Spurs definitely got a late-ish equaliser. And Iraola was sort of fuming at Bournemouth's inability to put that game away. So in that sense, it's not that much of a surprise. I think every now and again you will meet one of those mid-ranking opponents who are right on it and they outplay you. That's what's happened. Now, if Spurs are thinking of themselves as, we're a Champions League team, we're one of the top 6 teams in the country, this shouldn't be happening to us, then they've got a problem. If they're thinking of it as, we're a mid-table side, we're looking to push into Europe again, even qualifying for Europa League actually would be quite a reasonable achievement for this season, and there will be the occasional game like this we lose. I think that's a much more realistic way to pitch it, given where they were last season, given the building work that has to go on. But I think it is a bit of a reality check, having beaten City and played really well against PSG.
Yeah, I've got a new tactic this season I have where I'll listen to club-specific podcasts to kind of gauge the reaction to a game that I haven't seen 90 minutes of. So I watched the highlights of the Spurs-Bournemouth game, but I hadn't watched the whole game. And I was listening to a podcast that Jack Pitt-Brooke is on, and they were kind of saying, and the Spurs feeling was around that game, it was almost the wrong selection. That do you need João Paulinho against Bournemouth? Maybe you play your younger players and you've got a bit more legs against a team like Bournemouth, which I thought was like quite a strange thing to kind of pinpoint that as being the reason that they didn't do well in that game. The fact that it was João Paulinho rather than someone that had more legs in the midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I'd broadly trust Jack's judgment. He sees a lot of Tottenham. I mean, maybe if they I'm guessing from that they did get overrun in midfield. I mean, like you, I only saw the highlights of it. So.
Yeah, it looked like they got overrun all over the park. In all honesty,
I would tend to trust their judgments. I'm sure that is right. What do you then do with West Ham, which is another slightly awkward game where Spurs know they're better than West Ham. They also know they never beat West Ham, and it is a London derby, and the atmosphere will be, whatever doubt and negativity there've been around West Ham this season, the London Stadium will be up for that. So how does Thomas Frank pitch that? And I think that's quite a difficult question.
When you just said then you broadly trust Jack's judgment, if you were doing a podcast with someone else and they said, I was listening to Dan Bardell's Villa podcast and he said this, would your reaction be, I broadly trust his judgment?
Let's say yes for sake of argument.
What I was going to say next. Callum Wilson scored for West Ham last time out. Are you imagining he comes in the team and becomes their main number 9 this season?
Possibly. I mean, Fulkrug clearly...
It's an old front line, that, isn't it? Your 2 striker options being Wilson and Fulkrug. Yeah,
there's not a lot of dynamism there. There's a lot of running for Jared Bowen to do, basically.
Yeah.
So... I mean, in some ways, it's a nice position to be in. You play one of them for 65, 70 minutes, bring the other one on when the defence is tired. Callum Wilson, I think, is one of those players who is good off the bench. I think some players struggle to pick up the pace of the game. I think he's not one of them. So I'd probably still start Fulkrug, but, Callum Wilson played well against Forest. If I want to start with him, that is also a reasonable selection decision to make.
Yeah, I heard Bowen talking about him when he was on international duty. Like, this is the guy that he's going to be the guy for us, Callum Wilson. We're all so excited to play with him. So glad he's come on and scored. But the real quiz, Jonathan, is how old's Callum Wilson? I've just looked.
33.
Yeah, bang on, correct. Well done. Excellent work there. Callum Wilson is, of course, 33. Let's stick with strikers quickly and talk about Kolo Muani in at Spurs. I actually can't remember if we spoke about this last week. I think I put it in the running order, but I don't think we got through it. Where does he fit at Spurs? Obviously, Solanke's got injury problems at the moment. Is he going to be there, Manga?
I think he's got a chance to be. I mean, I think if Matthijs Tel had worked, and that's
a strange signing, that.
Well, it's a strange signing, and Thomas Frank seems to have written him off already. He's not in the Champions League squad.
Yeah.
So you spent 30 million quid on this bloke, and you're already saying, well, but he's a bit of a Carabao Cup player. I mean, look, he's young. He might develop. But I think signing Kolo Muani, who was somebody I don't think there was any evidence they were really in for early in the window. I think it's sort of a slightly opportunistic signing. And I think probably a recognition that Solanke does have injury problems. He's not somebody who's consistently fit. They probably do need a pretty high level backup. I think it makes sense. I mean, he's obviously fallen out of favour at PSG, which is not necessarily his fault. I mean, PSG have such an abundance of good options in striking areas. He did pretty well at Juve last season, and went there in January on loan. Got was it 18-13, I think, in the league. So it's not like he had a terrible season last season. It's just he doesn't fit at PSG anymore. So get him in on loan. He's a good young player. He's got that mobility, that willingness to work across the front line that should bring in people like Kudus, people like Kulusevski when he's fit, Maddison when he's fit, Brennan Johnson, Richarlison, even if Richarlison were to play on the left. So I think that does give them options. So yeah, I think it's one of those signings where they probably didn't need him, but it's nice to have that backup, particularly when you've lost faith in Tel and when Solanke does have so many injury issues.
Yeah, and Kudus to get a good reception from the West Ham fans after making the short trip to Tottenham Hotspur. I'm sure
they'll be delighted to have him back.
Like that transfer, probably all the transfers in the summer, I felt like that's just an admission from a club that we're just miles off where you want us to be, because he kind of just went there as if it was nothing. I thought Kudus going to Spurs from West Ham, and the board just accepted it.
I think there's a couple of things. I think it's partly that. I think he had a disappointing season last season.
Yeah, he wasn't as good.
And I think West Ham are probably thinking, well, I think maybe he's not somebody who's necessarily going to give 110% for a club he's lost faith in. And what's the point of keeping around a sulky bloke who's expensive? And also they're under PSR pressure. They've had a huge clear out of older players, West Ham, in the summer. And Kudus obviously is not an older player, but I think he's almost part of that clear out of let's generate a bit of headroom. We can get 60 million for him, and that will help us to sort of reconstruct the squad. And there's a lot of reconstruction needed.
Yeah. West Ham a lesson in how, when you make a big pure profit homegrown sale, like they did with Declan Rice, in how not to manage that afterwards with some of the money they've spent. Like, they've gone crazy, haven't they, to probably make themselves worse?
Yeah, and I think a lot of clubs do that. I was looking at this around the Alexander Isak thing, obviously not a homegrown signing, but a big sale that you could make with a player who has, at least in his own mind, outgrown the club. How often does it work and how often does it go wrong? And I think when it goes wrong, it's because clubs go a bit berserk and just think, oh, we've got all this money, we've got to spend it. I think Spurs did that with the Gareth Bale money when... I mean, they brought in Eriksen. They brought in 7 players that summer, didn't they? I think Eriksen's the only one who... I might be one other that I forgot.
Lamella was okay.
Okay. I mean, no more than okay.
No.
And there's people like Kirikesh, wasn't it, who came in. But Spurs, I don't think, got the full benefit of that deal. I think when United sold Ronaldo, they probably invested pretty wisely. Almost like Fergie knew what he was doing. Who's the other one I looked at?
Villa sold Grealish and did not invest that money well.
That wasn't the one I mean, you're right, but that wasn't the one I was thinking of. There's one other obvious one. Anyway, whoever it is, I think it's. So Liverpool with Coutinho did it really well. That they said, right, we're getting Alisson, we're getting Van Dijk. It took them a year and a bit to do it, and equally Barcelona getting the Neymar cash just completely burned it. Oh, we got all this money. Oh, we better not have money. Money's a bad thing. We better go and spend it. And then just splurging on Coutinho and Dembele with, I think, paid massively over the odds for both of them, Dembele particularly. didn't really know how they're going to use them. So yeah, look, it's not easy when you have, and everybody knows you've got that money, so everybody bumps the price up. So what you got to do is hide it away, do a bit of infrastructure investment, say to everybody, we spent it all on a new stand or a new training ground, and then sort of just dribble it out of the next couple of windows.
Yeah, good tactic. Nice tactical work from you there off the pitch. Let's have your prediction then, please, Jonathan, for West Ham against Tottenham.
I've gone 2-1 Spurs for Charlison.
Ooh, I've gone 2. I don't know why I've done this. I've gone 2-2. Kudus. Just fancied it. As you say, I did look, and Tottenham haven't got a great record at West Ham, but surely West Ham can't win 2 in a row. If West Ham are winning 2 in a row, my team still hasn't scored a goal or won a game. That's going to be very upsetting. So let's talk about my team that hasn't won a game and hasn't scored a goal. Then going to Everton this weekend. It is, of course, the Jack Grealish game, as everyone will bill it. Everyone will talk about Jack Grealish, so we won't start with that. I've wrote here, Jonathan, Everton's transfer window quietly good. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes. I mean, I think potentially good. It took them a long time. And if you'd asked me sort of mid-August, I'd have been a bit sort of, well, what are they actually doing? But Dewsbury Hall's come in and looks really good immediately. Grealish obviously has done really well from the start. But then, he hasn't played yet. But Tyler Dibbling, we saw last season, huge potential, huge promise. I think Carlos Alcaraz, who's played some part in all 3 games, so I think he's only started one of them so far. He looks like a decent young player. Who's, what is he, 20? Why do we keep doing ages? He's 22, I think. He's early 20s, 22 or 23.
Oh, he's 22. You are on absolute flames, as the kids would say today, Jonathan, with age guessing. Unbelievable.
But it's not just who they brought in. And this is one of the things I think is becoming increasingly accepted, that selling is really important. Selling players is hard. Chelsea do it amazingly. How Chelsea make a profit on every player, I don't understand. It makes no sense to me. But Everton, and when we talk about West Ham having a clear out, Everton have also had a clear out, possibly less dramatic. Ashley Young's gone, Doucouré's gone, Calvert-Lewin's gone, Holgate's gone. That clears a load of, at least in terms of wages, it gives you a lot of space, gives you opportunities to do things. So, I think... without it being dramatic, this window for Everton, I think they've ended it in a much better position than they started it. Yeah,
it kind of feels like more like a Moyes squad now. I actually think they'll have a good season, Everton. I'm not saying they'll qualify for Europe, but, at the end of last season, we were saying 9th might get Europe here. Very exciting on the last day of the season. I wouldn't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that Everton finish 9th, and, that is a European place. I think they've got a decent shot at it, Everton. And unfortunately for my team this weekend, they're going to be good at home, aren't they? In the new ground, you can just tell.
Yes, although we shouldn't get carried away with that performance against Brighton. they were a little bit lucky to win that. I think Brighton missed a penalty, hit the woodwork twice. So I was at Brighton City last week. The last game week for the Premier League, and I'd sort of gone there thinking Brighton had a bit of a dodgy start to the season, and then talking to fans, talking to journalists who cover them regularly. There was actually, no, we've played fine. We're letting a late equaliser against Fulham on the opening day. Should have beaten Everton. We're pretty good this season. Don't worry about the fact we've only taken 1 point in the first 2 games. They then started that game against City appallingly. Were brilliant in the last half hour. So I'm sort of slightly. This is a problem at this stage of the season. There's so little data, you end up caveating everything. But although Everton have started with 2 wins, I didn't think they were great against Brighton, and maybe a little bit fortunate to get that. But you would think in the new home, especially if they get another couple of wins early on, that will become a fortress, difficult place to go in a way Goodison could be when it was in the right mood.
Yeah. And someone who I think will kind of carry the pressure of carrying Everton on his back almost. I'm not saying there's no other good players there, because there is, but I think Grealish will want to be the talisman. I think the way Moyes is talking is that he's going to be the talisman. We saw it when he was at Villa, very good at carrying the hopes and expectations of the team on his back, given kind of a freer role, performing very well. Feels like it's going to be more like the Grealish that we see at Everton so far. Of course, he's already got 4 assists since he arrived at the club. We know his age because he turned 30 a couple of days ago, so happy birthday to him. Hopefully he doesn't have too good a day at the weekend against his old team. It feels like a good mix, doesn't it, Grealish going to Everton. It's good to see him playing football with a smile on his face. He just looks, his body language looks more relaxed, and he's going to enjoy playing for a manager like David Moyes as well.
Yeah, well, I like to think there's a place in the Premier League for 2 or 3 teams who they're not going to win the league. They're not going to qualify for the Champions League, but they are going to be, on their day, really good, particularly at home. and they have a couple of players who you just like watching. So Palace have fulfilled that role for a little while, but every time I went to Selhurst Park, I liked going because I got to see Eze and I got to see a well-organised team who on their day could pretty much beat anybody. And Everton, there's no reason why they shouldn't be that. And I'm sure their fans are going, oh, we're bigger than Palace. Well, yeah, you are, but you've got to earn that. And you're in that stadium with the Moyes organisation plus Grealish. That could be something really exciting.
Yeah, let's talk
really
about
exciting, probably meaning 7th or 8th, but still.
Do you think he's got a chance of getting into England? I don't know whether it's a 23-man squad or a 26-man squad. If I'm honest, for this World Cup,
I'm not sure it's been confirmed yet, but I'd be amazed if it's not 26 because obviously
it's a big tournament.
It's a game more, it's eight games, so I think it's 26. Well, England have got a wealth of options there. They haven't quite got a Grealish.
Yeah, there's a place for a maverick, isn't there? Like him.
Well, look, there's going to be some very good players in that kind of position left out because. I mean, we mentioned this earlier, but they've got Saka, Palmer, Bellingham, Madueke, Rodgers, Grealish, Foden, Mount,
Gordon. Do you say Gordon?
Eze, Gordon? There's 10 players. There may be others I haven't said there.
Yeah,
all of whom are in realistic contention for 3 places. So you're thinking maybe 8 places in the squad. Now, not all of those will be fit. Some of them will fall out of form, but there could be players pop up this season who suddenly hit form at the right time, who force themselves into the equation. So, I mean, England have never had such a wealth of options in
isn't it?
Those creative positions. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you say? I don't think you said Rashford there as well.
Rashford.
He's played on the left most times when he's been available for Tuchel so far. You never know. Harvey Elliott at Villa, who we might talk about in this section, did very well for the under-21. Just so many attacking players. I mean, this isn't the right time to be talking about attacking players because I haven't felt like Villa are going to score a goal once in the 3 games that they've played so far, Jonathan. Is this the game where Villa trouble the scoring charts?
No. Everton to win 1-0, Beto.
Oh, no. We're not going to score again?
No.
Really?
And you're not going to score at the stadium like the following week either.
I don't think the 2 games that Villa have got are ideal. Everton away and Sunderland away. They feel like 2 places Villa go and trip up a little bit like Brentford away a few weeks ago. I can't. And I looked at our first 8 games at the start of the season and thought, ooh, they're all right. Now I look at every game and think, oh my God, are we ever going to score again? Like I've got the game down as 1-1 with Dewsbury Hall to score the first goal for Everton. Nice finish for him last time out against Wolves. Villa don't get anything this weekend. That's if you include the last game of last season, that'll be 5 games without a win for Villa. So potentially could be 5 games without scoring as well. What would you think of Villa at that point if that was to happen? Because this feels like a big game at the weekend, first one back after the international break and a few new signings.
Yeah, and you'd hope from a Villa point of view, it's been a chance to reset and get themselves going again. But I sort of feel that Villa have just got themselves in this funk that they're sort of, we're not allowed to sign the players we want. We've had to sell players, PSR's all against us. And it sort of begins with that game at United at the end of last season. That it's sort of like the disappointment of that, of failing to qualify for Champions League in such an absurd way that has just sort of cast everybody into this despond worse than they ought to as a result. Now, I don't think we could get relegated because it will eventually snap out of that.
Okay, so we've done our predictions for Everton v Villa then. Let's go through the rest of our predictions before we focus on the Manchester derby. So Bournemouth against Brighton, Jonathan?
2-1 to Bournemouth, Evan-Nielsen.
I've gone 2-1 to Bournemouth as well, but I've gone for Danny Welbeck to score first in that game. Palace v Sunderland, Jonathan, the mighty Sunderland.
1-0 to Palace, Mateta.
3-1 to Palace, Mateta. Fulham Leeds, I've gone 1-0 with Muniz to score against the team he was linked with in the summer.
Snap, exactly the same.
Oh dear, I'm not making up any ground this week, am I? This feels tactical, even though you didn't know my predictions before we started. This is a silly prediction from me. Newcastle 4, Wolves 2. Bruno Guimaraes with the first goal.
2-0, Wissa.
2-0. Oh yeah, why didn't I forgot about Wissa. I was so busy thinking about Voltermeyer, thinking, but he won't start. I didn't then think, but Wissa might. That was stupid of me. Brentford v Chelsea, Jonathan.
1-0 to Chelsea, João Pedro.
Guess what I've predicted?
1-0 to Chelsea, João Pedro.
That is correct. Great. And then Burnley against Liverpool, Jonathan.
2-0 to Liverpool, Ekitike.
I've gone 4-0 to Liverpool, and of course, Cody Gakpo to score the first goal until he scores the first goal this season. Right then, let's look at the Manchester derby then. I've suddenly doubted myself that Man City are at home, but they are, aren't they?
They are.
Man City against Manchester United. We did speak about Man City on last week's show. We were just talking like, I don't think they're going to win the league this season. 2 defeats already, Jonathan, in good company then Villa with the 2 defeats. Do they get back to winning ways against Manchester United?
I think probably they do, but more because United are bad than because City are good.
Yeah.
I mean, if City don't win this, then okay, it's a derby. Weird things happen. United have actually won 3 of the last 8 derbies, which is maybe better than you'd expect given how the teams have been relative to each other over the last sort of 3-4 years. 3 years. I think that takes in a Community Shield and an FA Cup final. City have, under Guardiola, this is an obvious thing to say, but City have been really good in midfield. United under Amorim have been terrible in midfield. Therefore, City will dominate midfield, and therefore they should win. But they really were not good in that last half hour at Brighton last game week.
No. They're too open, aren't they? They're still so easy to play through. I think the warning signs were there in the World Club Cup where they won one game pretty well and everyone was saying, they're back, City, they're going to be a different beast this season. They've got all these new players. But very quickly, when they got knocked out, I was watching them and I was like, well, that was a carbon copy of last season. And seeing the way Brighton played through them last time out, the Gruder goal, it's like, the gaps between the centre-backs, like all the distances between the players seem off. Playing in transition against them seems to be the way to go. It was never that easy to play through Manchester City when they were really, really good.
Well, that's the vulnerability they've always had. It's a vulnerability any Guardiola side will always have, that they like to play a very high line, they press you, and if you can get good ball in behind their back 4, they will cause you can cause them problems. And so when it has gone wrong, that tends to be where it's gone wrong. But it hasn't happened as consistently as this. Last season, particularly that 3-month spell around Christmas, this is what happened. And to an extent, in Guardiola's first season at City, it's what happened. I don't think James Trafford's starting position helped them. I'm not sure Donnarumma will necessarily be any better at that because I don't think he's a keeper. He's particularly adept at playing out of his box. I wonder if Pep Lijnders coming in as the assistant is part of the issue. Lijnders very much likes a high line. Maybe that's just sort of edged it up slightly more aggressive than Guardiola was playing. Maybe with Haaland up front, the way they go slightly more direct to him, maybe they do need to have that line slightly deeper. Very bizarre Guardiola afterwards saying that the reason they let in that Gruder winner was because Kusanov had to go off and so they didn't have his pace to get across. I think, hang on, your defence falls back because Kusanov isn't there.
Yeah, I've never seen him have a good game. I haven't.
I think Kusanov's a pretty major doubt for this game. So if Kusanov really is the key to City, A, that's weird and worrying for them. B, he's probably not going to be here, or certainly not 100% for this game. So maybe United do have a chance. And you sort of think, well, if United can be a bit more pragmatic than Amorim often is, if they can sit men deep, if the 2 holding players, who I'm assuming are going to be Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes, essentially just sit, you spend the whole game sitting deep, and they do play on the break to the front 3. If they do have, I don't know, Šeško to hold the ball up and Burmo's pace, I don't know who else is going to give him pace up there because Acuña's injured, Xerxes not quick. if only they had Garnacho still, but they don't.
Does he come from Dorgo on the left-hand side? At left wing back, is he play a bit higher and Shaw kind of shuffles across a little bit? That would probably be the way to go if you're looking to play in transition.
But yeah, that's a risk immediately. So I then like Jallo playing in one of the 2 inside forward roles, but then you're relying on Dalot playing on the right, but Dallow's a doubt as well. It's almost like they haven't got a squad that fits the system.
Ahmad? Always forget about
That's
Ahmad.
what I'm saying. Yeah, Jallo. That's what I was just saying.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Dallo. I thought you were going to do the rascal shout for Dallo, Diego Dallo to play further forward.
No, Jallo to play as inside forward and then Dallo to play at right wing back.
It's very confusing.
Yeah.
Okay.
The way United can hurt them is those transitions, but they don't look equipped to. It's incredible how they just don't look a team equipped to play in transition.
No. Is RODRI back for Man City now properly? Is he fit again? Is he going to make a difference to Man City? Well, obviously he's a very good player, so he would make a difference. But does he just suddenly come in and solve everything, RODRI being back? Because they never lose when RODRI plays, generally.
Well, they lost to Brighton. Admittedly, he went off a quarter of an hour to go, something like that.
See, he goes off, they lose.
Well, but they don't. They were already buckling by the time he went off. So look, he's obviously not 100%. I think he went off because the pace was starting to catch up with him. Once he's back to full fitness, once he can last a full 90 minutes, maybe that does make a difference. But he didn't look the same. And how can he? It'll take him time to get used to it again. But he didn't look the same dominant presence that he used to. I think there's got to be a process of readaptation for him because he's not playing such a good team anymore. He hasn't got Kevin De Bruyne. Bernardo Silva, I think his legs are starting to go. He hasn't got the Phil Foden he remembers. Guardiola's out for this game as well. He hasn't. John Stones is a major doubt. So he doesn't have the players all around him that he used to have. Kovacic is out for this game.
Marmoush is out as well.
Marmoush is out, yeah.
And Shirka. They got any players?
Well, I think they've got 10 out, haven't they?
I felt like we just named an 11 then that wasn't playing.
Out or doubtful. But even if they are all fit, they're different players. He's got to get used to that. Are they as well drilled in the Guardiola system? So look, having Rodri back obviously helps because he's when he got injured, he was the best player. Well, he's the best player in the world. He won the Ballon d'Or. He's one of the best holding midfielders we've ever seen in the game. So obviously that's beneficial. But A, I think it's going to take him time to get back up to speed if he ever does. And B, he's not got the same level of quality around him.
No. Haaland started the season well though, as he normally does. He just got 5 goals for Norway in their last game. Does he score 5 against Manchester United?
I doubt it. Do you see the name of the player who the only previous Norwegian to score 5 in international?
I did not.
He's called. You've got 2 first names: Odd Wang Sørensen.
I don't remember him. What era are we talking there?
Early 60s.
Yeah, I'm not going to remember that.
Just a good name, Odd Wang Sørensen. I like that.
Yeah. He's the last player to score 5 goals for Norway before Haaland.
There's only the 2 of them have ever done it, yeah.
That's a good achievement. Didn't he score 5 for Man City at one point? Well, he can never get that double hat-trick. I swear he scored 5 in a game for Man City once.
I think he did. I think you're right, yeah.
He just can't get that double hat-trick, can he?
I mean, it's not easy, is it? Not many
No, as I've established all the way through this show, it's hard to score goals, Jonathan. It's the hardest thing to do in football is score goals. He's going to score against Manchester United, though, you would expect, because I've got him down as my first goal scorer here. What's yours?
Yeah, Holland, yeah.
Yeah, what score have you gone to? I bet you've gone the same as mine.
2-1 to City.
Oh, no, 3-1 to City. I'm not sure about this game. There's suddenly, you kind of had me with the Man U in transition, and then you realised that they haven't actually got the players to play in transition. I think Cunha would have been crucial for this game. I think him picking up the pocket of space in the left 10 role would have been crucial for this one.
I think they'll miss him. I think already he's come in and looked really good.
Yeah, he has. What about Seska? Because Seska's going to start now, isn't it? It's a big game for him.
I would assume he would start, yeah, and it's a chance to see. I mean, look, he's good in transition. He's quick. I know he's massive, but he is really quick. I'm not sure he's the world's best finisher in one-on-ones. There's a goal he scored in the Champions League for Leipzig last season, where it just shows everything about him. I think he sort of charges about 70 yards with the ball. Nobody can catch him. The shot's terrible. It's half cleared, put back in the middle, and then he scores. So he does score eventually, but he actually misses the chance. But once he starts running, you can't catch it. Like Haaland, because he's so big. Once he gets going, he's unstoppable. But you've got to get him going, and then there's no, unlike Haaland, there's no. He's much less likely than Haaland to score when he gets in those one-on-ones.
Yeah, that's probably the case with every footballer in the world. They're much less likely to score than Erling Haaland. Went through on goal. Right then, Jonathan, I think that does us. I somehow managed to keep it to 45 minutes whilst having more topics, which I'm not really sure how we've done that today. Have I missed something? I
think this is masterful hosting. I congratulate you.
Here we go. If he talks about me like this when I'm here, what does he say about me when I'm not there? Absolutely incredible. Right. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan, for joining me again today. And we will, of course, be back with our Premier League preview show again next week. And Jonathan and I will keep in touch with each other over the weekend about how the results are going. Because, of course, the Predictions League is very, very important. Jonathan, how are the book sales going before we depart?
I think quite encouraging, but obviously there's always room for more. So... Yeah. It's the perfect Christmas present. It's the perfect, if you're going on an autumn city break, maybe perfect thing to take with you. The power and the glory, a new history of the World Cup.
You'll see it over my left shoulder, looking absolutely resplendent in my background. So do check out Jonathan's brand new book and all of his other old works as well, because there's always Jonathan Wilson books that you can buy, isn't there?
There's 15 of them now, yeah. So plenty of options there.
And there's always Jonathan Wilson stuff that you can read on Substack and Jonathan Wilson stuff that you can hear on podcasts and shows and whatnot. So, yeah.
Libero, it was what it was. Full range. Libero, if you want sort of in-depth discussions of major themes in football, it was what it was for football history. And whatever this show's called. What is it called? The preview show?
1992 Premier League preview show, Jonathan.
It does what it says on the tin. Premier League previews.
Yes, there we go. Jonathan, absolutely buzzing to be doing this show, as always, after he waxed lyrical about of the show so much and then didn't know the name of the show that he's doing now with me. So if you are watching and you're not subscribed to our channel on YouTube, if you could do that, please, that would be excellent. Also, leave us a comment and leave us a like as well. I'm thinking this one might be on audio, should be on audio as well. So wherever you're taking in this podcast via audio, if you could give us 5 stars, leave us a review, leave us a comment, all that stuff is appreciated. If it's not on audio platforms, just ignore everything that I've just said. So this has been 1992. It's goodbye from me, Dan Bardell, and goodbye from Jonathan Wilson too. And that outro is different every single week.